All right, good morning, everybody. We are back at it with the Heathkit Hilltopper. We got a few things to do on this to take it to the next level. And two previous episodes. First episode, we got this thing running. We did the bare minimum, which was actually putting a brand new Predator 224 with a brand new 30 series torque converter on here. Swapped the rear sprocket out from a 40 chain to a 420 chain 60-tooth sprocket that I had. And then we just strapped the factory 224 fuel tank, also exhaust and intake, because none of that stuff would fit once we did this. Strapped the factory gas tank to it, took it for a ride. Second episode, we did a rear disc brake. We did this gas tank. We did the front wheel and tire, new front wheel and tire. Well, a used front wheel and a new tire. But we ended up swapping the front wheel out for a wheel I had from an Arctic Cat mini bike. Well, so now in this episode, we're going to take this thing to the next level. This is going to be the last episode of this build, at least for now. And we're going to finish this thing off with some accessories. Accessories being, one, a kickstand. This thing doesn't have a kickstand anymore. It did have one from the factory somewhere, I don't know, but it's not on there. So I got this kickstand. It's just one that I cut off of a scooter or something that I had. So I got this kickstand. We're going to put this on there. I've got an old headlight. We're going to figure out how to make this work. This, I don't know if this is 12 volt or 6 volt. We'll talk about that later, but we got this old headlight. I've got this old trailer tail light with a metal housing, and the lens is good, so we're going to use this as a tail light. And then I've got this battery that I had laying around. It was actually, well, we'll talk about that later. So we got a battery, headlight, tail light, and then the big thing is a front brake, because this bike had a front brake to begin with. It was a drum brake, and we took it apart in the previous episode and learned that the pads had lost their backing, and I didn't want to go ahead and fix that because I wanted to do disc brakes front and rear on this. Right now we got the rear, so this is some of the parts to finish the front brake. So we're going to do a front brake on here, front disc brake. So let's get into it. Alright, so I wanted to start this video off with the front brake because I think that's going to be the most time consuming and fabrication, labor consuming. But, you know, I ordered this disc. It's a 7-inch disc, and it's just too big for the wheel and tire setup. So I have another mini bike that's got a 6-inch disc on it. So we might be able to use that, but I ordered a 5-inch disc. I think that's going to be our solution for the front brakes, but that's coming. So we don't have that. We don't have the stuff really to do the front brakes, but I do have, I have a handle, I have a caliper, although I'm not going to use this caliper. I have this other caliper that I stole off of something, but it's a much smaller caliper, so I think we're going to use that one. But we got some of the parts, so really we're just waiting on the disc. So what we're going to start off with, you know what? I was thinking battery, but you know what? I think we should start off with this kickstand, because then I won't have to have blocks under the bike. So let's start there. I'm kind of concerned about how I'm going to actually mount this kickstand, because we got the torque converter on this side and everything, and then we got the chain over here. I don't want this to hang real low, so we're gonna have to do some playing around to figure out where it's gonna fit on here. But first, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this down pretty much as I can, because I don't want this thing hanging down real low on the frame. I want it to be tucked up as close as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and just chop a big chunk of this mounting bracket off of here, and then we'll work on actually getting it mounted up to the bike. Alright, so we got this kickstand wrapped up, and what you're seeing me do right here is there was actually a little crack in the frame in that spot, right where the motor plate welds to the frame. So I just took a little piece of tubing and made like a little triangular section out of it and patched it up and threw some paint on it, and that crack is fixed. Okay, so the next thing we're working on here is battery mount. So this battery, I'm not going to go crazy with the battery mount because this battery is just, I had this laying around. I say that a lot. I have a lot of stuff laying around. I'm going to run out of stuff laying around pretty soon. But so this was a battery I used. It took 3 of them, and I bought 2 4-packs to rebuild an old electric lawnmower for my mom. So this is the 1 battery left over. I'll put a link down below if I remember. I don't know if you guys want to. I mean, I'm not really recommending using this because I don't know if this will even be good for this, but it should be good. So we got a 12 volt, 10 amp hour, 120 watt hour sealed lead acid battery. So where I'm getting with this is I'm not going to go crazy with the mount for this because this could become obsolete and we put some other type of motorcycle battery or something else, or just a drill battery mount in here or something. So I'm going to mount this battery in here. I'm basically just going to create some tabs to hold it in place so it doesn't slide around, and then obviously some sort of hold down. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to go yet. I hope I don't have to actually pull the engine out to make this happen, but if we do, so be it. It's not that big of a deal, but I think we can probably do it with it in here. So that's pretty much it right there. I mean, we have this much room. We'll probably just try to put it in the middle, create a couple of a tab on each side to hold it from shifting this way and that way, create a tab on the front to keep it from sliding that way. You got the back to keep it from going that way, and then we have to create some sort of hold down. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I have some ideas. So let's get started. Alright, now I gotta figure out the actual hold down for this. Alright, so we have our battery hold down plate. And then we have, oh, where are our studs? Studs are on the table. Alright, so we got our studs. I just basically drilled holes in here for the studs to go through, and then I'm going to double nut the studs on the bottom. At least that's the plan, if I have enough room for that. And then, yeah, that'll be it. The studs up through there. Bolt the battery down, and then we'll work on the wiring. Alright, so there's our battery. It is solid. So we got the 3 hold downs, one here, one in the, or I don't know what you call them, things to keep the battery from sliding. And then we got our hold down here, big solid one. Now we got to work on, well, not wiring. Let's put the tail light and the headlight on. Alright, here's our tail light. Let's open this thing up and see what we got going on. Hey guys, just want to give you an update on the wiring. It's kind of late at night. You know, I'm getting some late night wiring in here. I'm going to show you. I just finished with the whole wiring on this. I got a huge mess going on I got to clean up. I got my little soldering set up here. Pull that off. But I want to show you guys we have a brake light. So I looked at this, and this ends up being, this is an old Napa USA built trailer tail light. I kind of blacked out the bottom, or more or less tinted it, so not as much light comes through there, but there's still some. So we got brake light, and then under here is our switch for our headlight and tail light. So there's our tail light, and then our headlight. So let's see, I wanted to show you what I did with the wiring. It's pretty simple. So I used trailer wiring. I got 3 wires coming up this way. One goes from, so first we got the battery, right? Oh, I got my boot here. I can put my boot over here. Okay, so we got our battery with our positive and our negative. Comes up here, goes into this distribution block, or this is a circuit breaker, a 15-amp circuit breaker, which is plenty for these 2 lights that we're running. So it goes from the circuit breaker into a power wire that runs to the brake light switch here, and then the green wire runs back to the actual tail light. I have this little connector. I had this in my box and I just soldered it in so that the tail light can be actually unplugged. So that's the tail light, or that's the brake light. So the brake light has power all the time. And then we have going from the circuit breaker to this switch, and 2 wires coming out. One goes to the actual running light, the tail light, and the other wire, this brown one, goes up to the headlight. And then I also took this factory kill switch and wired this in, and that wiring, all this wiring actually goes into the handlebars, comes out of the handlebar right here, down, and then here's the wire for the headlight, obviously, and then the kill switch wire breaks off of there and goes into here. I really like this factory kill switch, so I wanted to repurpose it, rewire it, and make it work again on here. So now we have the Predator on-off switch, and we have the actual kill switch, so when you're riding you can kill it if you need to. But that's the whole wiring system. Oh, plus in line here from the battery to the circuit breaker we have an inline fuse. I got a 30 amp in there. That might be too much, but it's not gonna make a difference. The only way that that's gonna pop is if this grounds out here or the wire somehow grounds out. Otherwise, if it gets overloaded from something on either of these circuits, these light circuits, it's just going to pop this fuse. It shouldn't blow the actual, or it should pop the circuit breaker and not blow a fuse. So yeah, that's the wiring, real quick and dirty. I'm going to get the seat back on here, and then tomorrow we'll start working on the front brake. Okay, so we're back at it with the Heathkit Hilltopper. It's been a couple days since I did the battery and the wiring. I had some other stuff to do around the house. So the last thing we're going to tackle here is this front brake, which it has none right now. So I'm going to gather the parts. Well, the parts are mostly right here. So we have our front brake lever. We have our caliper. We have another caliper option. We've got a couple of disc options. We're going to try that small one. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get this wheel off. And then the first thing we have to do is basically make an adapter to adapt, to bolt the rotor to the wheel. So this one, the reason we have such a small one, this is a 5.1 inch rotor is what it's listed as, is because the rotor and the caliper both need to fit in here, basically under the tire. This is going to be plenty of brake for this thing, especially if we end up using that bigger caliper. If that fits in there, that'll be a ton of brake for this thing. I mean, if you're really pushing it, maybe the brake rotor will get hot, but this is a mini bike. It only goes probably 40-something miles an hour, so it probably only does about 40, I bet. But that's our brake setup. So first things first, wheel off, make the adapter to put the rotor on, then we'll figure out how to actually put the caliper, attach the caliper to the fork. there's that one. One of the problems is like all the holes and everything are real close together, so when this thing is going from cut to cut, it's running into these little slag things, so you can't have it so low. Like I had some pretty tall ones on the last one, so this is good enough. I'll be able to work this into what I need it to be, you know, just with a little bit of hand work. That's flange 1. This is the side that the brake rotor actually bolts to. Now we got to make the side where the wheel bolts to the wheel. Alright, so there's our 2 flanges. I got to clean these up and make a piece of pipe fit in there between them. We'll have to figure out what that spacing is. But first we're going to clean these up and we're going to get them tapped if that's what we're going to do, or we're going to drill them through. I've been cutting these holes as small as I can with the torch. I don't know if that's a good plan or not, but it seems to be good, so then I can easily drill and tap them. The other thing I'd like to figure out is there's a way, but it's kind of complicated, I guess, where you can just have the torch pierce. It literally just pierces where the hole's going to be. So then basically it's just marked, and then you can drill it. Because this plasma cutter thing, it doesn't really cut your holes very accurate. So if you want real small holes, you gotta drill them smaller than you want. You gotta cut them smaller than you want. We got our first one cleaned up, got the holes drilled, 5/16. So we'll see how accurate this is, because I didn't over drill the holes at all. So if these all start in here, I don't have the right length bolts. Oh, there's one. That is just slightly off. No, it's not. It's good. That one's good. One more. Bam, that's pretty good. So we've got, so like I said, I don't have the right length bolts right now. These are just the bolts that I got. So that puts that on there. We have to make sure when we put this in here that it is not set down too far, because we got the bearing right here, so we can only recess this just a little bit. So this is basically how it's going to go. Alright, so we got this flange drilled. Let's see if we are good on this one. This one's going to have nuts on the back of it. I just didn't have the room to really drill and tap this whole flange. So there we go. I got to get the right bolts for this too. Probably going to get something with an Allen head on it. And yeah, look at that. So I think the next thing that has to happen is we got to get this wheel back on here. We need to, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put the wheel back on loosely. Get a rough measurement of where I think the caliper is going to land. And then I'm going to cut this piece of tubing slightly long so that I have a little bit of extra room to move this rotor in and out to get it exactly where I want it on this piece of tubing. So, and then we're going to pull this back off and we're going to weld this to this flange. That way we got that solid, because that's not going to move. And then when we get this guy on here, we'll be able to float that in and out to get it exactly where we want it, which is somewhere, actually way down in here somewhere. So, but we'll cut it just a little bit long so that we have the room to work with, and then we'll start building the caliper mount. Alright, so we got that there. Let's go ahead and try to scribe this so we know where to weld. We gotta clean this up a little bit. And then we'll be ready to put this on the bike. Alright, so I got everything painted up. We got our rotor hub, I guess that's what you would call something like this. And then we got our caliper mount all painted up and ready to go. So all we're going to do is just put this back together. And then hopefully I have the right hose to make this work. If not, we'll have to order that. But let's get this thing together and see what we got. Alright, so I had to wait a couple days for the hose to come in, but we officially have a front brake, and it seems to be very good front brake. There's the hose. Oh, I gotta trim some zip ties. Alright, zip ties. Let's trim those off. Bam. Okay. Okay. I want this little grommet right here in case that rubs on there. But so yeah, there we've got we officially got a front brake. We've got disc brakes front and rear on this old mini bike. The last thing I'm going to do, well, two things. I'm going to take the driven pulley off of the torque converter, and I'm going to wind it up as much as I can to keep it out of overdrive, because like all of these, it seems to be an issue unless you're just, you know, even straight road cruising, depending on your gearing, you know, they all seem to just pull into overdrive too easily. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wind that up, and that'll keep it in, that'll keep it accelerating longer and get our RPMs up before it pulls it into overdrive and kind of bogs it down. So I got that, and then for some reason, I think there's something going on with the float in the carburetor, because if you just shut it off for a second, it'll start flooding the bike out if you don't turn the fuel off, and it'll start coming out of the carburetor, like out of where the fuel filter is, or the fuel filter, but where the air filter is. So there's something going on there, so that's no big deal. I'm not going to show you guys unless I find anything interesting. It's probably the needle or the float has come loose or something. I don't know. I'm going to figure that out, but first we're going to take this driver off, and I'll show you guys real quick what I'm going to do once I get it off and on the bench, but I don't need to show you taking it off, so I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys what I'm doing real quick here, because I've done this before on the channel in the past. But so you got your spring in here, and it's in the center hole. Now, let's see, if we want to wind this thing up more, because it's wound this way. Okay, So if you want to put more tension on it, I believe what you want to do is move. Yep, so you're going to want to move it to this spring right here, or this hole. And there's always debate about this online because it's kind of confusing. But if you think about it, okay, the spring is wound up this way. And right now it's stuck in this hole. So if you stick it in this hole, it's going to turn the spring that much more. And I've heard of people even actually drilling an extra hole to wind it up even more. But there is another spring out there. There's also some confusion. Okay, so there's 3 springs that I know of. One is this red spring, which comes on all these knockoff torque converters. They're always a red spring. But like a Comet torque converter has a green spring as a factory spring. Now there's some debate on whether this red spring and the green spring are the same spring. A lot of people say that the red spring is exactly the same as the green. A few out there say the green spring is a little bit stiffer. But then there's a yellow spring, which is actually a Comet spring, I believe, and it is stiffer, specifically made for stiffening these up. I have not tried one yet. I need to get one. I'd like to try one on some of my other mini bikes. I think with this one, it's going to be fine just winding it up to this next one. It'll at least be an improvement. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to pop this snap ring off. This whole thing is going to want to explode out on me. It's really not that bad, and then just basically clock it to the next hole, wind it up, past the buttons, and put the snap ring back in. So I'm going to turn you guys on time lapse. I'm going to do that real quick. A lot of times it can be pretty difficult, so I might move over to a vise or something. I'm not sure, but we're going to get this thing apart. We're going to do that mod, and we're going to get it back on the bike. Alright, I wanted to tell you guys real quick about what happened with the carb. I went to press record, and it was in time lapse, so what happened was a bunch of little aluminum flakes, or whatever you want to call them, made it down into the bowl, and it was keeping the needle from sealing. So that's why we had our leak. So I cleaned that out, so and everything is back together. We are ready to go for a ride. I'm trying a new position on my helmet. It's right in the very front, and it seems to be a bit crooked. So I'm wondering if I can fix that. But no, it's not bad. Okay, so yeah, I'm trying a new spot on my helmet, right in the very nose of the helmet. I'm sorry, the camera's on the helmet right now. So you're not gonna be able to see the visor. Before, like, you could see the visor and like the nose of the helmet. I don't know if you guys like that view or not. Sometimes it was hard to get, a good view, and like you couldn't really see. I didn't like it when I was editing it, so I'm trying this view. I'm hoping that I can get it dialed in to where we get a good view of everything for you guys. So let's go for a ride. I got my trails cleared out. It took me 2 days to cut down some trees and move them all out of way. So yesterday I finally got the trail cleared out. So let's go ride the trail. Front brake works great. Woo. So the got some dust. So the trail is going to end up going this way and into the woods. We got a whole big section in here where it's going to zigzag and do all kinds of cool stuff, hopefully. But yeah, that's the trail. Let's run it in back. Let's run it in reverse. Or let's do another lap. Good brakes. Down the inside line. Woo. Uh-oh. That's not good. Got plenty of fuel. Not sure why it's cut out on me there. Wonder if it's the kill switch. Climbing the hill. Alright, kill switch works. Alright, I think our are, all right, let me just take this off here, see what we got. All right, our torque converter mods seem to work pretty good. It's not a massive improvement, but you can tell it's got more pickup. It's better at climbing the hills. When you really tell is like when you're like at speed, you know, and you're kind of, you know, you're just giving it everything it's got, and then here comes a hill, and you can tell that hill back there where it just kind of pulled up much better than it did before. So that's a plus. Now I got to look at this footage, and hopefully it's at a good angle. If not, I'm going to be doing this again. But this thing, I am in love with this bike. It is amazing. I can't tell you guys. It's got a good amount of, you know, vintage mixed in with modern technology. So you got your new style Predator 224. You got a 30 series torque converter. You got disc brakes front and rear. It's got rudimentary suspension. Like I told you guys before, the front is you know, you get a little bit out of there. The rear is actually pretty good. It's pretty cush. It works well. Not a lot of actual dampening going on, but it gives you some cushion. We in this episode, we added the front brake. We did a kickstand, which is super nice to have a kickstand, so you don't have to lean it up against anything. We did the lights. So we have a brake light. Let me see if I can hit that with you guys to be able to see it. Brake light, and then we've got tail light. That's hard to see, but tail light's on. Headlight, battery. So we did our battery mount right there. You can see that in there. That turned out really nice. All in all, I'm in love with this bike. I think this is pretty much it for it. I like the way it looks. I like the way it performs. I want it to just hopefully just be a reliable one that I can hop on whenever. It has some weird handling characteristics because, you know, you got this super wide square-ish rear tire, and then you got this front much smaller, narrower, also kind of square front tire. So that gives it some kind of weird handling characteristics. My buddy, when we were riding, he said that when you go to lean on a corner, you're picking up most of the tire, which you can kind of see a little bit now, but if you lean it hard, you know, you're kind of on the edge. But I don't think it's too bad. I think it feels okay. It just feels a little bit weird. It feels a little weird at times when you're turning, but so yeah, I really like this bike. I hope it stays, you know, reliable, and I can just fire it up and ride it whenever. It's finished in my book. So, but thank you guys so much for watching. Please smash that like button for me. Hit the bell if you want to get notified of future videos coming out from DJ's Hot Rod and Fab. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you on the next one.